Hello and welcome to Doubles and Trebles. We're back with our second PGA Tour golf preview for you today, courtesy of Pieman the man himself, the latest edition of our growing portfolio of sports previews. Pieman is here to give you a quick run through of this week's event, which is the Wells Fargo Championship. But before we do that, Pieman, our first ever golf video last week on the Valspar Championship, and you managed to get a nice bit of profit. So give us the lowdown on what went down at the Valspar.
Yeah, cheers, Adam. We had a good first week, all things considered. I mean, I thought it was going to be very good at one stage. We had obviously three selections put up last week. We had Sung Jae Im, Abraham Answer, and Doug Gim. And it was Answer that ended up providing the place money. He finished fifth, but it looked even more promising than that going into the weekend. We had him and Answer just tucked in behind the leaders. Unfortunately, Sung Jae Im, after playing brilliantly for the first 2 days, had a bit of a car crash on Saturday and kind of played himself out of contention. He only finished a few shots outside the places, but a little bit frustrating. You know, it was just one of those days. Answer, he was there to compete, to be honest. I mean, he was four back of the eventual winner, Sam Burns and Keegan Bradley, going into the last day. You're always needing a little bit of luck if you're that far back, to be honest. I mean, there was always a chance that one of these two leaders was going to kick away from him. He did need a hot start. He very nearly got it. He was 2 under through 5. He probably should have been 4 under through 5, to be honest. Missed a couple of gettable birdies. Could have been a different story. As for Doug Gim, I'll be going back to the well with him, to be honest. 100 to 1. He lost a lot of strokes putting. I was just hoping I was going to get him on a hot day with his putter, but just missed far too many putts from inside sort of 15 feet. If he gets that putter sorted, he's going to win something at a massive price, and I'm sure it's a name we'll hear again on this channel. But yeah, 5 points staked and 8 points back, so we're well ahead of the game already.
Yeah, nice to see Pieman, a 35 to 1 placer last week in Abraham Answer. So this week for the Wells Fargo, Pieman, just looking at Oddschecker, there's certainly some bigger names, bigger number of big names than there was last week. Justin Thomas, who we saw last week, is the 10 to 1 favourite generally. Then the likes of John Rahm, Bryson DeChambeau, Xander Schauffele, Rory McIlroy are backing him up near the top of the market. So where's your money going this week?
Well, pretty much all those names that we mentioned weren't there last week. Justin Thomas was. He just kind of petered along in midfield. Unusually quiet week for Thomas. And Dustin Johnson is the notable absentee this week. He's having a bit of time off. But you expect this. We've got a major 2 weeks away in the form of the PGA Championship. So people are picking their schedule very carefully now. Some of them will play this week and have the week before next week off, whereas some of them won't play this week. You know, Dusty Johnson hasn't turned up this week. We'll probably see him next week. Some of them, if they're not feeling like they need a bit more tune up, they might play both and just go into it off the back of 2 or 3 events. But I think, we've got a particularly strong field this week, and that has inflated the prices out a little bit. So, an interesting week in terms of the market. Just running through the course first, I think it's important to have a look at this course, Quail Hollow. It's a course that many golf fans will be familiar with. It's been hosting this event. Yeah, it's been hosting this event since 2003, and it's also hosted a major championship, hosted the 2017 PGA Championship, which was won by Justin Thomas. So I imagine he'll be a popular runner this week. You know, a good bit of course form, won when the elite field was out, and it was a really bloodless victory, to be honest, a really impressive victory. So, yeah, he'll be popular this week, Thomas, but he's a popular pick every week, to be honest. He's just got an iron player that's second to none, and he's always going to compete in these things. This course is also going to host the President's Cup next year, which is the kind of the equivalent of the Ryder Cup, but you have an international team as opposed to Europe taking on the Americans. So, yeah, tough course. We had a tough closing stretch last week at the Valspar Championship. It's even tougher this week. This is officially the toughest closing holes in golf. 16, 17, 18. It's called the Green Mile. It plays over par, which is quite sensational, to be honest, for professionals to have a run of 3 holes that play an average of over par. So you're almost expected to drop shots in these closing holes. But just looking at the figures from last year, remarkable, really. The 18th in particular was playing 31% of bogeys for those who played the hole, and a further 7 or 8% of them were dropping 2 or more shots on that hole. So it's what I would call an in-play better's dream, to be honest, because you really can have people collapse from positions of power. Anyone that's in the clubhouse with a good score or something that looks like it's going to be, maybe not quite good enough, it quite quickly can become good enough. So definitely one to bear in mind. If you've got a player that's not through those last 3 holes, it could deteriorate quite quickly. Just looking at previous winners as well, We didn't have it last year with COVID; it was cancelled. But prior to that, this was where Max Homa got his first win. Someone I mentioned on last week's video, he had a very good week actually, Max Homa, and competed and contended. He placed as well. Jason Day won it in 2018, Brian Harman in 2017, but it was at a different course, so I wouldn't consider that form particularly myself. James Hahn in 2016, and it's worth mentioning Rory McIlroy won it in 2015 with a record score of 21 under. He's back here this week. He's had all kinds of problems with his swing recently, but this is definitely a happy hunting ground for McIlroy. I would expect him to be a sea of blue over the next couple of days on Odds Checker, as his legions of followers clamber to back him. But yeah, a very interesting setup, and I guess we could dive straight into the picks if you want.
Well, I'll just go through the market there, Pieman. Cracking insight into the course and those last 3 holes. Yeah, sounds really interesting. So just a quick run through. We've got Justin Thomas 10-1, favourite as mentioned. John Rahm's in at 12, DeChambeau 16, Schauffele 18, McIlroy at 18 as well. Viktor Hovland 20, Webb Simpson 25, Tony Finau 28, Cantlay 28. And the last couple I'll mention are Corey Connors at 30, as you mentioned last week, and Patrick Reed also at 30. But like you say, Pieman, I think the presence of some of the bigger boys this week in comparison to last week, no doubt you're going to be looking further down the field at possibly some bigger prices. So let us know.
Well, I am, but I also have got a couple that 2 of my 3 picks you have mentioned in that list there. But I'm not going right to the top. I've got my reasons for that, to be honest. I mean, I like to go for the big prices, as you know, where I can. But I do think you need to be realistic. Generally, when we have these absolutely stacked fields with the top boys, one of them will emerge on top. So if we're looking for an out-and-out winner, we probably do need to focus on the top 10 or 12 names in the market. Particularly at a course like this, I'm putting a real premium on strokes gained off the tee. Length is a clear advantage in this course, especially the par threes. A lot of the par threes are sort of 30, 40 yards longer than a normal course. So you're going to have to be able to club it quite a way to give yourself birdie opportunities on some of these holes. So that crosses out quite a few names for me already. I'm already narrowing my field there. And then I'm looking just a little bit beyond the top of the market, because Justin Thomas didn't really impress me too much last week. And I think he'll be more, the likes of Thomas and Rahm. Yes, they'll be coming here to win, but they'll also have an eye on that major in 2 weeks' time. Just tuning elements of their game up. They might be trying a few things here and there. I'm looking for someone who looks cast iron ready to win this week. And the main pick would definitely be Viktor Hovland, 20-1, 8 places. The big Norwegian. He'll be on the radar of every golf fan. He's been fantastic for the last year to 18 months. If you don't know him, you soon will, because he's going to be an absolute shoo-in for the Ryder Cup team later this year in September. A fantastic player and an absolute power striker of the ball. I mean, he really clubs it, Hovland, and he gives himself lots of opportunities just with the sheer brutality and accuracy of his game. Sometimes the putter and the chip in around the green can let him down a little bit, but he's worked really hard on that chip in, and he's starting to see the benefits of it. He shot an extremely low round yesterday on Sunday to get himself a 3rd place finish from nowhere, really. I mean, he wasn't in contention. There was a point yesterday, actually, where he birdied 5 of the first 6 or 7 holes, and it looked like he could compete. But as it was, he just left himself with a little bit too much to do. But, all systems go on Hovland. He looks in really good nick. He's a really confident player. He's a previous winner. He won twice last year, once at Puerto Rico and then against a strong field in Mayakoba. I'm confident he can challenge. He's had 2 seconds, 2 thirds and a 5th since February. So he's banging form, and 20-1 and 4-1 a place with 8 places. I think he's a really solid selection. So Viktor Hovland be the nap for me.
Nice. And the secondary or even the 3rd selection, you get put up 3 last week, Pieman. Are you going 3-handed this week? I
am going 3-handed again, yeah. Next one, this guy very much polarizes opinion, but it's Patrick Cantlay for me. I'm a big fan of his. He can be quite a slow player. He's maybe not the kind of personality that people like to get behind. Not particularly. He's quite pragmatic.
Oh, we're happy to get behind him at doubles and trebles.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. I mean, I don't really go with the grain in terms of the characters that I tend to pick out. And it's not that he's a nasty bloke or anything like that. I guess he's just probably not as exciting or glamorous as some of the names near the top, But what he does do, he competes regularly, and he's got an all-round game. There's no real course where you would say that he can't compete. And his success last year actually led to him sort of being priced in this kind of what we would call the elite bracket. So just behind the likes of Rahm, Thomas, McIlroy, etc., you would see Cantlay getting added into these markets around the 16-1 mark with the likes of Xander Schauffele. if it was a week where a lot of the big boys weren't turning up, he would be getting put in as a favourite or second favourite. Some people actually nickname him Can't Win because, because he's always at short price. He can be a popular selection sometimes, but he maybe doesn't get it done as much as an elite tier player. I think he's been a victim of his own success in many ways. You know, that he's won some of these minor tournaments. He's got a great all-round game. He's one of these that statistically, when you dig into the stats, he always comes up near the top. There's a lot to like about him. And I think people maybe just think he's an obvious selection sometimes, not sure. But it's a price thing with me in Cantlay, to be honest. If he's there at 14, 16, I would generally think there's better value around. Now, what he's coming here off the back of 3 missed cuts. Now, that will put people off, generally speaking. But I do think there's a good bit of reasoning behind that. I mean, at the Masters, he had an absolute nightmare on the Thursday. He was sort of 8 over after about 12 holes. That was his tournament over. I mean, he might as well have got in the car then, to be honest. So you can put a line through that. I mean, he just had a tough start. The Heritage is the interesting one for me. He literally missed the cut, what we would call on the number, where he's basically 1 or 2 shots off making the weekend, and then I think he would have contended from there. I thought that was the best performance we've seen from him in a month or so. I thought he looked like elements of his game were getting back to where they should be. He's one of these that he always gets put up as a dark horse for a major. That major's only 2 weeks away now, but I still think he'll be very keen to win this event. I think some of these fellas at the top, maybe not as bothered about winning as they are about tuning up. Cantlay will be here to win. And I think 25 to 1, you can get a bigger price, but I want the 8 places. So I'm going to take 25 to 1 Cantlay, 8 places. They would be my 2 from the sort of top end of the market.
And what would be what we're going to dub the Pieman Bomb at a bigger price for half a point each way on the doubles and trebles spreadsheet? What would it be this week?
Yeah, it's going to be Harris English for me. It's 66 to 1, 8 places. I think you can, again, get bigger, probably about 75s if you just want the 5 places. But I think when you're going into this end of the market, every place is needed that you can find. And look, at a 5th odds, we're still talking about a double-figure winner if he can finish in 7th or 8th spot, so it's worth doing. Harris English was a player of the past, really, someone that never really come into calculations. Until the turn of the year, he started sort of threatening to compete for a title. And I don't know, it was one of these where you just wondered whether it was just a bit of a flash in the pan, whether he'd just going to string a couple of decent weeks together. But sure enough, he got himself into the Century Tournament of Champions at the turn of the year, which is basically everyone who wins an event of any description gets invited to this event. It's a bit of a gimmicky tournament, but what you do get is you get a very good field, because it's all winners turning up. And he won this event, and they had all the big names in there, and he was pretty much faultless. Then what you had off the back of that was Harris English getting put into these markets as short as sort of 25, 20 in places, because he was banging form. He'd shown that he could get over the line, and suddenly he was entering everyone's calculations. And we've had this little lull spell where the results maybe haven't been as impressive. He's just slowly drifted back out to his kind of rightful spot in the market, 66 to 1. That form is only, 2-3 months old now. Now, that is a long time in sport. I admit a lot can go wrong, but I don't think stuff has particularly gone wrong for him. I think he's just maybe not the flavour of the month anymore. I think people have kind of slept on him a little bit. I still think he's far too big at 66s. He's got quite a rounded game. He does tend to gain strokes off the tee. He's not an absolute out-and-out hitter, but he certainly won't be losing strokes off the tee. So I think this course can work for him. There's not one particular area of his game that I'm concerned about. And in that difficult closing stretch that I'm talking about, I want someone who I've seen win before, because it's very easy if you're in that position, coming into the last 3 or 4 holes with the lead and you've not won recently, or you've not won a tournament, and you make a bogey. You probably will make a bogey on these closing holes. You've got to hold it together. And he's got that winner's mentality. I like it. I think if he was there, I'd be confident in him to close it out. I don't think he'll collapse if he's in the mix for my place money. So he's the bomb this week at 66s.
The Pieman Bomb, excellent. So there's the 3 selections from Pieman this week for the Wells Fargo Championship. Looking to continue the profit from week 1. Normally at this stage, if it was the other way around, Pieman would say something along the lines of, well, it won't last. But I've got faith in Pieman. This is going to last. He's going to land one sooner rather than later on this golf and get a couple of places along the way. So we're on Viktor Hovland at 20 to 1, 8 places each way. We're on Patrick Cantlay, 25 to 1, 8 places each way. And then the half a stake is Harris English, 8 places each way at 66-1. That wraps up our golfing preview this week. If you've got any fancies or winners or comments, please do let us know in the comment section below. And we'll be back soon with more sporting content at Doubles and Trebles.
Cheers.